As we approach the 2026 NBA trade deadline, I want to look back at arguably the greatest trade deadline in any sports' history, the 2025 NBA trade deadline, and regrade all the big deals 1 year later. And now we have a decent sample size since a lot of these deals went down, and we just saw so many big players get traded for. We saw so many draft picks on the move as well. So yeah, we're going to put a letter grade on how these trades have fared 1 year later. And like always, if you agree or disagree with anything I say, let me know down below. Drop a thumbs up if you guys do enjoy the content. Just a quick programming note, I will not be doing a typical trade deadline live stream this year. I'm actually going to be at the Bleacher Report studios in New York City doing a full 3-hour stream. That's going to be on their YouTube channel as well. Got a fun co-host, and we're going to be bringing in some special guests throughout it. But I might be going live the day before the trade deadline this Wednesday here for a couple hours on the channel. So let me know if you guys want to see that down below as well. So we're going to start off with a trade you may have forgot about. It's when the Memphis Grizzlies decided to do a salary dump and send Marcus Smart to the Washington Wizards, along with Colby Jones, Alex Len, and the Grizzlies' lottery-protected first-round pick in exchange for 2 second-rounders, Marvin Bagley. Johnny Davis was also in this deal, and the Sacramento Kings got Jake Arabia. So I'm going to give Washington an easy A here. This was one of the worst teams in the 2025 season. They had the cap space to take on Marcus Smart, who honestly felt like a good veteran for this team in the second half of the season, even though it was just a 1-year deal. The Wizards didn't really need Marcus Smart's contract this year, so they ended up buying him out in the 2025 offseason. He goes to the Lakers, but they got basically a free first-round pick out of this because Memphis ended up kind of slipping a little bit as well. They were in the play-in tournament. They make it out of the play-in tournament, which gave them basically the best non-lottery pick in a solid 2025 draft class. They eventually traded down on the night of the 2025 draft, but got Will Riley for basically free out of this deal as well, and a second-rounder to get Jameer Watkins from the Utah Jazz. And this is what rebuilding teams should do. Just use your cap space to absorb bad contracts that teams want, maybe cheap teams as well looking to slash their luxury tax bill. And that's exactly what Washington did here. So I'm giving this an A. For Memphis, this is definitely an F, because now that we have the power of hindsight, they didn't use that cap space to go out and trade for somebody like Kevin Durant. They actually traded even more money in the offseason by sending Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for KCP and Cole Anthony and draft capital. So if they were going to trade away Desmond Bane in the offseason anyway, why not just keep Marcus Smart's expiring contract? You could have just bought him out in the offseason anyway, and you could have had an additional first-round pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Imagine they were able to get Cedric Howard and use that other first-round pick to go up and trade for Cedric Howard and not have to give up a future Orlando first-rounder in 2028. Or hey, they could have drafted Walter Clayton, Drake Powell, maybe Nolan Traore instead. So yeah, this is an easy A for the Washington Wizards and an easy F for the Memphis Grizzlies. And funny enough, Marvin Bagley was also in this trade and just ended up on the Washington Wizards anyway in the offseason. Another smaller deal that went down that I'm just going an A and an F like the previous trade, the Milwaukee Bucks trading away MarJon Beauchamp for Kevin Porter Jr. Yeah, I'm giving Milwaukee an A and the Clippers an F. That was it, a straight 1-for-1 swap. MarJon Beauchamp, a former first-round pick, goes to the Los Angeles Clippers and only appeared in 3 games after this trade. He averaged 4 points in basically garbage time and got waived a couple weeks later, while Kevin Porter Jr. wasn't the greatest player in the world with the Los Angeles Clippers, but this looks like a really nice pickup in hindsight for the Milwaukee Bucks. In the 30 games after the trade last year, his points per game went up by 3 points, averaging 12 a night for the Milwaukee Bucks, was at least a solid point guard option when Damian Lillard went down late in the 2025 regular season. He signs a 1+1 contract extension with Milwaukee in the offseason, and in 23 games this year, KPJ has been averaging 17 points and 7.5 assists. He's still just 25 years old. Who knows what Milwaukee's going to be doing going forward? This was a nice buy low option for them. We'll stay on the topic from the Los Angeles Clippers at the 2025 trade deadline. Another really bad move by them last year in February. They traded away Terrence Mann, Bones Highland, and 3 second-round picks for Bogdan Bogdanovic. Yeah, I'm giving the Clippers an F for this trade, and I'm giving the Atlanta Hawks a B. Now, last year in the regular season, this did feel like a win-win trade. Terrence Mann was struggling with the Clippers, Bogdan Bogdanovic was struggling with the Hawks, and they were a lot better on their new teams in the second half last year. We'll start up with Bogdan Bogdanovic in Los Angeles, where he ended up averaging just 10 points in Atlanta in 24 games, shooting 37% from the field and 30% from 3. And if Bogdan Bogdanovic is not knocking down his threes, he is not worth valuable minutes on a basketball court. But then in the 30 games after the trade, he shot 47% from the field, 42% from 3, and averaged 11.5 points for the Los Angeles Clippers. He wasn't really good against Denver whatsoever, though, in the playoffs. And he's basically been out of the Los Angeles Clippers rotation right now and is looking to probably get moved this year at the deadline, while Terrence Mann was a lot better with the Atlanta Hawks after getting traded as well. He went up from 6 points per game to 10 points per game. He went up from 44% from the field to 54% from the field. And then the Hawks used his contract to go out and get Kristaps Kristaps Porzingis in the offseason as well. Kristaps Porzingis hasn't been the perfect Atlanta Hawk, but hey, if they don't make this trade, maybe Brooklyn does not want to take on Terrence Mann's contract, and they got some second round draft pick capital out of this one as well, so I'm giving it a B. Another trade the Atlanta Hawks made at the 2025 trade deadline, trading away DeAndre Hunter, who's one of their better players on a team that looked like it was not making the playoffs and didn't own their first round pick. The San Antonio Spurs owned Atlanta's first round pick, which ended up being Carter Bryant, and Atlanta traded away DeAndre Hunter to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Karis LeVert, George Niang, 3 second round picks, and 2 first round pick swaps. And at the time, I also questioned this deal for Atlanta as well, because one, you didn't own your first round pick, so now we don't care for bottoming out. Now in hindsight, they only gave up the 14th overall pick. You're not really losing any sleep on that. And I thought the first round pick swaps weren't going to be too valuable, because I expected Cleveland to be better than Atlanta over the next few years. And while at one point this year, Cleveland was actually giving Atlanta their first round pick, which looked pretty good, it's dropped a little bit as of late, but they're still swapping this on top of the Spurs swap. So right now, when I'm recording this, they're actually getting the 20th overall pick instead of the 28th overall pick, which is a small win. But I still like this trade a little bit more for Cleveland, so I'm going to give this trade for them a B+. DeAndre Hunter was really good for the Cleveland Cavaliers after getting traded. He shot 48% from the field, 42% from 3, after having a really nice start to the 2025 season with the Atlanta Hawks. Now, I know DeAndre Hunter has been in trade rumors. Hey, he might have already been traded by the time you guys are seeing this video, but I just think he's still a good asset to have going forward. It's $23 million this year and an expiring $24.9 million next year. It was unfortunate that we didn't get to see the Cavs fully healthy in the playoffs last year against the Indiana Pacers in round number 2. I still like this trade a little bit more for the Cavs, so I'm giving them a B+ and the Atlanta Hawks a C. But yeah, I think this trade could have been a little bit worse for Atlanta if they really bottomed out last year. I just don't know if the first round picks are really going to be worth it at the end of the day. I gotta mention my guy, Jusuf Nurkic, ended up getting traded last year at the deadline, along with a 2026 first round pick to clear money to the Charlotte Hornets in exchange for Cody Martin, who had a non-guaranteed contract for this season. Same thing with Vasilij Micic and a 2026 second rounder. And the Hornets were actually able to use Jusuf Nurkic's contract in the offseason to get Colin Sexton and his second round pick as well. I mean, using the power of hindsight, I'm giving Charlotte an A+ for this trade. You basically just took on half a season of Nurkic. You got a first round pick this year, which is going to be a top 25 pick. I know the Phoenix Suns have looked good, but hey, I'll still take a 3 first rounder. You were able to just trade Nurkic for Colin Sexton, who's not under a bad contract by any means. He's a free agent at the end of this year as well, and is still a really good scoring guard. As Phoenix was really trying to create some cap flexibility to go out and trade Jimmy Butler, I'm not going to grade the trade they made a couple days earlier, but they traded their unprotected 2031 first round pick for some other like C tier level picks to look more flashy to go out and get Jimmy Butler. We know they didn't get Jimmy Butler. We know that they didn't even make the play-in tournament. So for this trade specifically, I'm giving the Suns an F and I'm giving Charlotte an A+, although it kind of worked out for Phoenix as they've been pretty good this year. I didn't think they were going to be this good. Shout out to Jordan Haas. So the Bucks made a nice trade earlier that I talked about, going from Marjon Beauchamp to Kevin Porter Jr. This trade just... I didn't like it at the time. I still don't like it today. It's when they traded for Kyle Kuzma. You should not be giving up valuable assets for Kyle Kuzma, especially from what we saw from Kuzma with the Washington Wizards last year. So this ended up being a 3-team deal with the Knicks, but I'm just going to talk about the Wizards and the Bucks side of it. The Bucks received Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin Jr., technically Jericho Sims from the Knicks, and a 2025 second rounder, which turned into Bogoyar Markovic, a very, very raw prospect to help Giannis stay and compete in Milwaukee, as Washington received Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, a first-round pick in 2024, and a 2028 first-round pick swap. Now, I was lower on AJ Johnson pre-draft, and I didn't like the fit whatsoever in Milwaukee given their timeline, but I still liked the chance for Washington to just take a flyer on somebody like AJ Johnson, who still has raw potential in this league. They got a first-round pick swap from Milwaukee in 2028 to go from Kyle Kuzma to Chris Middleton. Kyle Kuzma's under contract next year. Chris Middleton is a free agent at the end of this year. I guarantee you, if you ask the Milwaukee Bucks front office, they'd rather have Kuzma be an expiring like Chris Middleton than have to pay him over $20 million next year as well. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm undervaluing Kyle Kuzma on the trade market, and maybe he can net the Milwaukee Bucks something positive. I just don't think it's going to be as valuable as somebody like AJ Johnson, at least a former first rounder, and a 2028 first round pick swap. So for Milwaukee, I'm giving them an F for this deal. It just was short-sighted. They didn't even end up winning a playoff series after making this trade last year anyway. Now, I know they couldn't really predict Giannis maybe wanting out, Damian Lillard tearing his Achilles, but I didn't like this trade when it happened before all that went down as well. So yeah, I'm giving Milwaukee an F. I'm giving the Washington Wizards an A. What did I say earlier? If you're a bad rebuilding team, take on maybe a bad contract like Chris Middleton and get a future pick swap out of it anyway. So yeah, this is a home run trade for the Washington Wizards in my opinion. They had a really nice 2025 deadline. All right, now let's get to some of the bigger trades that happened last year at the deadline, which makes this deadline historic. So the first one we're going to talk about, the Toronto Raptors trading for Brandon Ingram, who was injured at the time. He was a free agent at the end of the year from the New Orleans Pelicans in exchange for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first round pick, and a second round pick. Now, the Pelicans, I'm starting off giving them an F for this trade. I thought they got 20 cents on the dollar for Brandon Ingram, and they traded him about a year or two way too late. Brandon Ingram was a pending free agent and he was hurt, which basically eliminated any type of value. So if you want to say they at least got a first round pick out of it, sure. But Bruce Brown is no longer on the team. They traded Kelly Olynyk in the Jordan Poole trade in the offseason, which is also looking like a failure of a deal by Joe Dumars, and a second round pick as well. And for the Toronto Raptors, I'm giving them an A. They got somebody they desperately needed, like Brandon Ingram and his scoring ability in the half court. The Raptors were one of the more like lethargic, underperforming, non-creative offenses in the 2025 season. And I don't think he ends up becoming an all-star, maybe a replacement one, but Brandon Ingram has put up all-star numbers this year: 22 points, 6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 47% from the field, 35% from three, and 84% from the free throw line. They did give him a 3-year extension without him playing, and honestly, it's not the worst contract in the world either. $38 million this year, $40 million in 2027, and a $41.9 million player option in 2028 when he's going to be about 30, 31 years old. And what's funny enough, this basically sparked the New Orleans Pelicans trading away their first round pick this year, because the first rounder they got for Brandon Ingram was the Indiana Pacers top 3 protected 2026 first round pick that the Raptors got in the Pascal Siakam trade. And then the New Orleans Pelicans used that before Game 7, before Halliburton tore his Achilles, to give Indiana this pick back for pick 23 in the 2025 draft, which the Pelicans then used with their first rounder this year to go up and get Derek Queen. So hey, there's a little bit of a butterfly effect there, and that's why I'm just giving this trade an F for the Pelicans. Not going to go into this trade too much in detail because it didn't happen and got rescinded, but remember when the LA Lakers technically had Mark Williams for like 36 hours? The Lakers received Mark Williams, the Hornets received Dalton Connect, Cam Reddish, a 2031 unprotected first round pick, and a 2030 pick swap. You know what's kind of funny? I think both teams wish this trade happened, as Mark Williams has looked great this year for the Phoenix Suns and would be an upgrade over DeAndre Ayton. And the Charlotte Hornets probably would have gotten a better package here than what they got from the Phoenix Suns in the offseason, where it ended up being Liam McNeely, who I don't think is much different from Dalton Connect right now in terms of their value on a basketball court. And they got like a 2029 swap worse with the Minnesota Timberwolves and like Utah Jazz, which isn't the greatest pick in the world. And I think I'd rather take a chance on the Lakers 2031 unprotected first round pick and a 2030 pick swap. So I think this was kind of like a lose-lose scenario for both teams. Obviously, both teams are fine right now. Hornets are on the rise. Lakers still have somebody that we're going to get to later in this video, but it's kind of funny that both teams probably wish this trade ended up going through. Next trade, we're going to talk about the San Antonio Spurs acquiring De'Aaron Fox from the Sacramento Kings. We didn't really think Fox was going to get traded at the 2025 deadline, but then the report came out that he was not going to sign a contract extension with the Kings last offseason, and he was going to be free agent at the end of this year's regular season in 2026. So the San Antonio Spurs, in my opinion, got De'Aaron Fox for 50 cents on the dollar. The Spurs received De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings received Zach LaVine from the Bulls, Sidi Sissoko, 2 first-round picks. It technically says 3, but it was a Hornets lottery-protected first-round pick last year. That was never conveying to the Sacramento Kings. And then they got 3 second-rounders. And now we know in hindsight, they used one of those second-rounders on Maxime Reynaud. Good pick. And they used one of those first-round picks to trade up for Nick Clifford. I like the idea of Nick Clifford, but I think when the Kings are going to be really good again, Clifford's going to be a little bit older than you would have liked. And then the Bulls got in this deal and received Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones, and a 2025 first-round pick, basically getting their first-round pick back to select Noah Essengay. And in hindsight, their first rounder was top 10 protected, so they actually got their first round pick back that they wouldn't have gotten if they didn't make this trade. We still don't know if they made the right pick or not. So yeah, quickly, I'm giving San Antonio an A+ for this deal. Like I said, they got De'Aaron Fox for basically 50 cents on the dollar. They gave up Zach Collins, Trey Jones, who is a good young player, and I do think he's a solid point guard in this league, Sidi Sissoko, and just B-tier first round picks, maybe D-tier first round picks. You gave up that Hornets first rounder, which I said didn't even become a first rounder. You gave up your 2027 first round pick. You have De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle at the time, even pre-Dylan Harper. You were going to be fine. And they gave up a 2031 Minnesota Timberwolves first round pick, which could be good value. But you know what the San Antonio Spurs owe? The Sacramento Kings first round pick in 2031, an unprotected pick swap from the Harrison Barnes DeMar DeRozan sign and trade, and the Kings couldn't even get that back in this Fox deal. So yeah, the Spurs kept the Mavericks first round picks on the line. They kept the Hawks first round picks. They kept that Sacramento Kings first round pick as well. That's why San Antonio is getting an A+ for this deal. For Sacramento, I'm giving them an F. I think they absolutely butchered this deal. It wasn't their fault that De'Aaron Fox said he's not signing an extension, so maybe he lost some value, which stinks too, because now maybe in hindsight, you wish that that report didn't leak and then you could end up getting a better price tag for De'Aaron Fox, but the main player you got back, Zach LaVine. Are we kidding me? He basically has like an untradeable contract right now, and the Kings are the worst team in the NBA the moment I'm recording this. So hey, maybe this was a 200 IQ move. They knew that Zach LaVine was going to be a great tank commander this year, and I think they butchered the draft capital they got back in this trade as well. As for Chicago getting in this deal, I'm giving it a C. Thankfully, they were able to get their first round pick. Hindsight, maybe I would have preferred to take Derek Queen over Noah Essengate, but we still have to see what Noah Essengate can look like at the NBA level when he is fully healthy. Like I said, I like Trey Jones. Kevin Huerter and Zach Collins have actually been like solid role players for this team, which also might be a negative 200 IQ move because they're too good this year to tank, because Collins and Huerter and Jones are competent role players. So yeah, A+ for San Antonio, F for Sacramento, and a C for Chicago. So the second and last trade we're going to talk about, the Jimmy Butler deal from the Miami Heat to the Golden State Warriors. Now this ended up being a 5-team trade. The Raptors and Jazz also got involved. I'm not really going to give them a grade here. They just kind of got some free second round draft capital. The Detroit Pistons got involved and got Dennis Schroeder out of this trade, so I'll just give you 2 thumbs up for that, as I thought Dennis Schroeder was a good Piston in the second half, and I thought he was a good backup point guard and a good point of attack defender against the Knicks in round number 1. But mainly I want to talk about Golden State and the Miami Heat with what we know today. Honestly, for Miami, I'm giving them an A- for this trade. Now, I know they didn't get the best player in this deal, but they didn't have to give Jimmy Butler that large extension. They netted Andrew Wiggins, who I do think if they wanted to trade this year at the deadline, would get them a good return. They got Kyle Anderson in this deal, who they used with Kevin Love. That's it, to go out and get Norman Powell a couple months later in the 2025 offseason. Davion Mitchell has been a good defensive point guard for this team as well, and they got Kasparas Shakuchonis in the 2025 draft, who's definitely been up and down in his rookie year. But you guys, if you watched my draft content, know that I love Kasparas Shakuchonis, and I really believe in him as a developmental point guard under Coach Spo. So at the time, it maybe didn't feel like the greatest return because Jimmy Butler kind of like tanked his value for the Miami Heat with all that drama we saw last season. But I think using hindsight, Miami made out well. As for Golden State, it's so tough to grade this now, knowing that Jimmy Butler tore his ACL and he might not even play another game for the Golden State Warriors, who knows. So I'm just going to give them a B here. I do think this was a great trade last year and into this year. When Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry play together, they had a 42-18 record. And who knows, if Steph Curry doesn't suffer that hamstring injury last year in the playoffs, the Warriors could have made it to the conference finals with Jimmy Butler. But now, unfortunately, Jimmy is the second oldest player in NBA history to tear his ACL. He's making over $50 million next year on the last year of this new extension he signed with Golden State. So I might be generous giving it a B here. Now, if you're going to say that Jimmy Butler has 0 trade value and they're not going to be able to even get Giannis for Jimmy Butler or anything like that, like, you could drop this even more since they only won 1 playoff series with Jimmy. But I think what we saw was good enough to at least warrant a B, but you can even give it a higher grade if you think Jimmy could return or they can leverage Jimmy's contract into something else. And the last trade we got to talk about, we're about at the 1-year anniversary of this trade going down. It still shocks me today. Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers. And I tweeted out a couple days ago as well that Mavericks fans are going to be really disappointed when they see the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade return, because imagine Nico Harrison put Luka Doncic on the trade market. They could have ended up with Giannis Antetokounmpo possibly if they wanted to, as the deal was Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris to the Los Angeles Lakers. The Dallas Mavericks received Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a first-round pick in 2029. And the Jazz got involved and got Jalen Hood-Schifino and 2 second-rounders. I'm not going to grade the Jazz portion of this. I mean, still today, I think it's a Dallas F and a Lakers A+. We got to see 2.5 quarters out of Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving together. And maybe Anthony Davis does not get traded this year at the deadline, and we get to see AD and Kyrie in the second half, which I don't really think makes a ton of sense, given that the Dallas Mavericks are probably better off getting the best draft pick possible around Cooper Flag. The Mavericks right now are projected the 8th overall pick, and who knows how the lottery can go. And I'm not giving Dallas the benefit of the doubt here that they got Cooper Flag. And Cooper Flag is amazing. He's going to be a multiple-time All-Star one day. He just had 49 points against the Charlotte Hornets, but I'm not crediting them anymore for that for this trade. This wasn't Nico Harrison's vision, so the guy that made this trade ended up getting fired less than a year later. Anthony Davis has had like 5 different injuries since this trade went down, and I thought Anthony Davis with Kyrie Irving, with all these defenders around them in a playoff series, could be very intriguing and could have made maybe a run, who knows, with the way Anthony Davis was playing in Los Angeles before this trade happened. But then Kyrie tears his ACL. Anthony Davis gets hurt in literally his first game against the Houston Rockets. He's had an eye injury, an abdominal injury, a calf, Achilles injury, now a hand injury. And he's also 32 years old, and he might not have any trade value right now because he's also making over $50 million this year and next year, and potentially could leave in the offseason of 2027, where he has a $62 million player option in 2028. Who knows? Maybe he's opting into that at this point, as the Los Angeles Lakers future was so bleak before this trade went down, with LeBron getting up there in age. Austin Reeves wasn't this this level of Austin Reeves yet. And Anthony Davis was always something that you had to worry about, because could he be a number one? Could he stay healthy? And you got Luka Doncic, 25 years old at the time. Luka clearly has his limitations defensively, and maybe has a ceiling on what you could do with him as your number one option. And maybe that's why Nico Harrison tried to sell high. Although if he put him on the open market, they would have gotten 7 first-round picks for Luka Doncic. They got 1. I like the idea of Max Christie. Could you have gotten Austin Reeves in that trade as well? We've said this ad nauseum. Luka is averaging 33.5 points this year, 7.7 rebounds, 8.7 assists. And maybe you didn't want to give Luka Doncic the supermax and you were scared about that. And I think today we can use hindsight saying, you know what? It's not the craziest idea to try to sell high on Luka Doncic. Was it very risky? Was it maybe asinine? Yeah, sure. But if you sold high on Luka for the right price, I could see the reasoning for doing so. But they got 2 cents on the dollar for Luka Doncic. Like, they fumbled this trade so much. That's why I think Mavericks fans are really gonna have to shield their eyes when they see what type of draft picks go back to Milwaukee and what young players go back to Milwaukee if Giannis gets traded. And I will say, Luka last year in February had maybe double the amount of trade value Giannis can have right now, given the age and the contract situation. So that is gonna be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know down below anything you agree or disagree with from this video, and let me know if you're still interested in a trade deadline stream here on the channel, maybe on Wednesday, a day before the trade deadline actually happens. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.